Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am Samuel Abel Nathaniel Hawkins. I would like to serve you forever as a priest very soon. It's time to start finding your receipts for Sabbath services.
May I have your attention?
May I have your attention, please? Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I am son of Yisrayl, Abelin Hawkins, and I want to start serving you as a priest starting very soon. It's a privilege and honor to present to you the sons and daughters and Yisrayl are entering the sanctuary. And now I would like to introduce Ben Hawkins. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. The title of my speech is Yahweh's Feast You Must Keep. The Feast of Tabernacles is only 12 weeks away. It will be here before we know it. I want you to set your mind right now on keeping the feast exactly how Yahweh wants us to. Yahweh gives joy and peace to all the congregation at his feast. Deuteronomy 12, 5 and 7 tells us, "But you are to seek the habitation of your Father, the house of Yahweh, the place which Yahweh your Father shall choose out of all your tribes to establish his name, and there you must go. There in front of Yahweh your Father, you and your family shall eat, and you shall rejoice." So number 1, you must go to the house of Yahweh. Number 2, there you must rejoice. Is it hard to rejoice? No, it's not hard to rejoice. Yahweh is going to rejoice with us at his feast. He will be there with us. He promises us that. So let's set our mind on keeping the soon coming feast at his house and rejoicing with Yahweh. May I bless your understanding? I now present son of Yisrayl Abel, Yahweh. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated.
The title of my speech is Guard and Keep Yahweh's Way. From dictionary.com, guard means to keep safe from harm or danger. Keep means to have a possession of what is Yahweh's way. What is keeping all of Yahweh's 613 laws, which can be found in the Torah, which are the first 5 books. In the book of Yahweh, law, page 206 says, love your neighbor, whether a brother or enemy, as yourself. We must love our brother or sister as yourself. In Matthew 22, verse 39, Yeshua said, and the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. He who does not love his sister, brother, or sister as himself is a murderer. A murderer does not guard or have any part in Yahweh's kingdom. We come to Yahweh's house to seek refuge from sin when we guard and keep Yahweh's way. We are putting an end to sin. May Yahweh bless you.
If the Lord remains standing, it's my great honor and privilege to present to you the first speaker, the great Deacon David Knighton Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Today, we're going to continue in our series, The Hidden Secrets of the Two Witnesses and our Savior Yeshua. There's 4 different areas that we're going to cover today. It is, he will branch out, if you'll write these down, Council of Peace, Buffalo Bill Hawkins, and I Am Yahweh. He will branch out, Council of Peace, Buffalo Bill Hawkins, and I Am Yahweh. If you'll have your pens ready, we're going to have a few slides per speaker, and Yahweh willing, we'll finish up in a great time so everyone can go get their dinner on time. And if you'll all please stand. It's my great privilege and honor to present to you our next speaker, son of Israel Abel, Melchizedek Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Now, if we could start off by turning over to the book of Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 6, and look at verse 12. It's found on page 719. If I could have my first slide. It says, "Speak to him and say, this is what Yahweh of hosts says. Behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh." So you can see there on the first slide, the underlined part and highlighted, it says, he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh. Now, that sentence there, if you put it in the gematria calculator, if I can have my second slide, okay, and in the Jewish gematria, the first one there equals out to 4894. 4894. So if I could have my third slide. Okay, so in Strong's Hebrew, 4894 means to spread forth. Okay, to spread forth, and it's from 7849, if I could have my second slide. And it means spread abroad, enlarge, to expand, stretch out, all abroad. Okay, so these definitions clearly fit the description of branch out. It shows the message and the work of Yahweh spreading through the earth in order to build the house of Yahweh. Yahshua, our high priest, and the witness, Yisrayl Hawkins, working together to accomplish this greatest gathering. Now, in Strong's Greek, 4894, if I could have my next slide, 4894 in Strong's Greek means to know together, to consider, to see completely, and it means to understand or become aware, and to consider, know, be privy, and to be aware of. So, every week whenever a pastor comes up here, he reads the news articles, and he shows how many news media are covering the article or spreading the article. Okay, and this is, this is one of the ways that the message is getting out to the world through these press releases. Okay, and it says that this message is going to be preached to the whole world in Matthew 24 verse 14. Now, if I can have my next slide. In Isaiah 41 verse 20, it says, "So they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of Yahweh has done this, and that the Holy One of Israel has created it." Okay, so yes, Yahweh created righteousness, as it says in Isaiah 45 verse 8, and the gods are nothing. Okay, this is what the two witnesses are commissioned to teach. Okay, as it says in Isaiah 41 verse 10, and Isaiah 42 verse 6, and Isaiah 44 verse 8. Yisrayl Hawkins is the last anointed witness and the spokesman of the two witnesses. Okay, this message of the kingdom of Yahweh will be preached at Abel by the one who bears witness to all nations, and then the end will come, as it says in Matthew 24 verse 14. Okay, this knowledge, honor, and understanding will go throughout the whole world, as it says in Zechariah 5 verse 6. So with that, that's all the time I have. If everyone will please stand. I'll turn it over to the next speaker, Yisrayl David.
Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. I'm going to be picking up right where Mel left off. Our subject is Zechariah 6 verse 12. Yisrayl Hawkins, the branching out from his place, and building the house of Yahweh. And I just want to familiarize everybody who might not be familiar with the process that goes into this, the gematria, and looking up these words in Strong's and so on. You have a phrase, and if I can get my first slide, the phrase here was, he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh, found in Zechariah 6 verse 12. You look that up in the gematria, and it gives you the numbers. You have the Hebrew and the English gematria. And the next slide shows that the English gematria for this phrase is 3,744. And we looked that up in Strong's. So the next slide shows that word 3744 in the Hebrew is herald, a herald, or a messenger. A proclamation, to make a proclamation. A herald is a messenger, and who's that messenger? Yisrayl Hawkins. Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins is the seventh messenger, and he's told to write and proclaim these things to come for the express purpose that you return to righteousness. That's in Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 43 and verse 26, where he's told to proclaim these things. Revelation 11, verse 10 shows that both of the two witnesses will accomplish the job of proclaiming Yahweh's word to the whole earth, throughout the whole earth. And that's not talking about just pastor. That's talking about him and all of us, all of his children. How many of you are children of Yahweh? Praise Yahweh. How many of you are children of Yisrayl Hawkins? I want to praise Yahweh. I want everyone to realize that in order to be a child of Yahweh, you have to be a child of Yisrayl Hawkins. Praise Yahweh. You can't get to one without the other, because Yahweh sent Yisrayl Hawkins. He's the one sent, and you have to have a teacher in order to get to Yahweh. So you have to go through Yisrayl Hawkins. But it's speaking directly of Yisrayl Hawkins and Yisrayl Hawkins' children, his seed. Let's go to the Greek in the next slide. The Greek is the same number, 3744, and it's from 3605. It means a smell, an odor, a fragrance. A smell, to stink, or to emit a scent. Now, what in the world does that have to do with anything? You know, smells and fragrances. Well, you can remember this smell or this aroma, you know, we're a pleasing aroma to Yahweh if we keep His laws, but it gets deeper than that. You know, what does it have to do with Yahshua, the high priest, who is also working directly with Yisrayl Hawkins, the branch? What does it have to do with the message of Yahweh, which is being spread to the whole earth? If you'll turn over to Isaiah 43, Isaiah chapter 43 and verse 26. Let's see here, Isaiah chapter 43. In verse 26, it says, "Call me to remembrance." Remember that word, remembrance. "Call me with my name. Let us judge for or against as one in unity. Write and proclaim these things to come, for the express purpose that you may be turned to righteousness." Now that word remembrance there, that word remembrance, we're dealing with remembrance here. And if you'll turn over to Exodus 3 verse 15, or my next slide, it says, "Yahweh, this is my name forever, and this is my memorial." This remembrance here. It's the same word, remembrance and memorial. The name which I am to be remembered by, from generation to generation, for all generations. We're still dealing with this word scent here, this word smell. So memorial. The next slide, please. Memorial is from Hebrew 21:43. 21:43, and it means remembrance, of course. It's the word Zakar, which is the same word that Zechariah comes from, meaning remembrance of Yahweh. It also means scent, as far as smell, scent, a smell. It means to bring to remembrance, invoke, or to put in remembrance. So, you know, unless you can put all these things together, you won't really realize how they tie in with each other, because this word scent is just kind of thrown into memorial. But it's there because it ties in. So, if you'll turn over to 2 Corinthians 2, verse 14, and that's my next slide. The message of Yahweh, that's the heading there. Notice the heading. The message of Yahweh, the smell of death, or the aroma of life. Now, why would the message of Yahweh be a smell of death? Why would it be a smell of death? If you remember, in a lot of the older sermons, Pastor said this, to those who hear this message, understand it, and refuse it, it's a dangerous message. Why would the message of Yahweh be dangerous? Because if you refuse it, it's the smell of death. Meaning that you're calling for, you're heading towards your own death. But it says, my slide, it says, "Now thanks be to Yahweh, who in Messiah always leads us in triumph, and through us spreads in every place the fragrance of the knowledge of Him." Spreading this fragrance, or branching out and spreading the message. "For we are to Yahweh the fragrance of Messiah among those who are being saved, and among those who are perishing. To the one we are the smell of death to death, and to the other the aroma of life to life. And for these things, who is adequate? For we are not like so many who corrupt the word of Yahweh for personal gain, rather as of men with the purest motives." That's what a teacher is. Somebody who teaches, who learns what to teach, that way he can share it with others. Not for himself, to make himself better, but to make everybody else around him better as an example and as a teacher. That's exactly what Yisrayl Hawkins does, and if we're his children, we're learning to do the exact same thing. Praise Yahweh. So, but with the purest motives from Yahweh, in the sight of Yahweh, we are speaking in the Messiah, or in unity with the Messiah. So the house of Yahweh in these last days is the only family meaning we have a father, a teacher, the only family on earth who has a high priest. Hebrews 10:21 tells us that. And Yisrayl Hawkins is the only one prophesied to preach the message of Yahweh in this time period, and it's a scriptural fact that one cannot preach unless he is sent. Unless he is sent by Yahweh. And that's in Jeremiah 23 verse 21, Romans chapter 10. Yahweh will have no other work other than the one he has prophesied. One he has prophesied in advance. That's in Amos 3 verse 7. The House of Yahweh is the only organization on earth preaching and teaching the laws of Yahweh. Pastor is the only man on the face of the earth who has restored the name and the laws of Yahweh in these last days. We spoke about that in weeks previous. Therefore, it's the House of Yahweh who is spreading the smell, the fragrance, the message of Yahweh throughout the world. Nobody else is doing that. If you can look back at that slide again, the same slide, here's just some more proof. And Yahweh works with these numbers. Look at the page number of 2 Corinthians, page 902. If I can get my next slide, please. Hebrew 902, remember this is the page number. It's the Hebrew word bigvi. It means the head of a family. Every family, or every body, has to have a head. Probably the head of a family of returning exiles, but it also means in my body. In my body. So the body, who is the body? Who is the body? We're the body. The house of Yahweh is the body. So it's talking not only about pastor, the teacher, or the head, but also the body. The body, the house of Yahweh in Abelin. And there's a little bit more. Let's look at the Greek in the next slide. It means a palm branch or branches. So who is the head? The branch? Yisrayl Hawkins is the branch. And if you notice in Zechariah chapter 6 verse 12, Yahshua is even told through the prophecies, through the scriptures, to pay attention to this branch. Behold this branch right here. He's the one that's going to branch out, spread the message, and rebuild the house of Yahweh, reestablish, restore the house of Yahweh. Pay attention to this one. Pay attention to this one. So, and I mentioned earlier that the name Zechariah also comes from the same word, which means memorial, scent, smell. And it means the remembrance of Yahweh. Now let's get some closing garnish on the top of our dish here, on top of our spiritual food. Can I get my next slide? The book of Zechariah begins on page 717 of the book of Yahweh. And if you look at the tetragrammaton, the Hebrew word for Yahweh, you can see it kind of has that 717 in it. That's just something to remember, to keep in mind. But Yahweh always puts, little tidbits in there for us to be able, the sprinkles on top of the cake, or the icing, or the garnish on top, to help us out, to help us see these things and to remember them. But that's all I have for you today. I'm not going to spend any more time, because we got to go right into the next speaker. If you'll all please stand. I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker, the great Nabiah Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yah be with each and every one of you. I'm going to be continuing on in this hidden secrets of the two witnesses and Yahshua, our high priest. And can I have my first slide, please? I'm going to be going over the simple gematria for he will branch out of this place and he will build the house of Yahweh. And in simple gematria, it is 624. So that's the number I'm going to go over, 624. Can I have my next slide, please? So 624 in the Strong's Hebrew means a storehouse. It means gathered. Can I have my next slide, please? It comes from 622, and it means to gather. And if you remember, the last speaker just talked about the number 717. And amazingly, 717 in Strong's Hebrew also means gathered. So this is talking about the gathering to the protected place, which is the house of Yahweh. But this number also talks about another gathering that's taking place. May I have my next slide? So Strong's Greek 624, it means Apollyon, and it comes from 622, and it means to destroy, to abolish. It means to put to an utter ruin, and it means to destroy. And also, amazingly, 717 in the Greek means Armageddon. And Armageddon comes from two words, Strong's Hebrew 2022, which is Har, and it means mountain or hill, and Strong's Hebrew 4023b, which is Megiddon, and it comes from 1413, and it means gather selves together in troops. So this here is talking about the gathering to the seven hosts of Rome, the gathering to destruction. Now these two numbers, 624 and 717, both have identical meanings in Hebrew and Greek, and they describe two different gatherings that are taking place in these last days. One shows the gathering to the body of Messiah, the protected place, the gathering in Abelin, Texas, and the other shows the gathering to destruction that is led by the Vatican and the seven hosts of Rome. Now, Matthew 24 verse 14 says, "And this joyous message of the kingdom of Yahweh shall be preached in all the world from the house of Yahweh Abel by the witness Yisrayl, for Yahweh will be with him. He will preach this message to all nations, and then the end will come." Yes, the message of Yahweh is being preached and published throughout all the world by the one who bears witness, the branch Yisrayl Hawkins. He and his seed are sowing the message, branching out throughout all the earth, and the people are being prepared for the greatest gathering in the territory of Abilene, Texas, the house of Yahweh. The house of Yahweh is the aroma and fragrance of life to those who hear and believe the message of Yahweh, but it's the stench of death to those who are perishing, led by the Vatican, who is leading all the nations into a prophesied nuclear war that will result in a 1 hour utter and complete destruction of sinners. And with that, if you all please stand, I'll turn over to the next speaker, son of Yisrayl, Deacon Yedidia.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I want you to turn over to Zechariah 6:13. Zechariah 6:13, and it's on page 719. And it says, "Yes, he will build the house of Yahweh. He will bear glory and will sit and rule on his throne. He will be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace will be between them both." In the Gematria, if I can get my first slide, the council of peace will be between them both. That phrase, it comes out to, in the Jewish Gematria, it comes out, it equals 2967. If I can get my second slide, please. Strong's Hebrew 2967. It means official or officials. If I can get my third slide, the definition of officials, and it's from dictionary.com. The definition of officials means persons appointed or elected to an office are charged with certain duties of or relating to offices or positions of duty, trust, or authority, official power. If you can turn back over to Zechariah 6:13. Turn back over to Zechariah 6:13. It's on page 719. Zechariah 6:13. It says, let's read this again here. It says, Yes, he will build the house of Yahweh. He will bear glory and will sit and rule on his throne. He will be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace will be between them both. Now go over there to side note G9. Side note G9, it says, the two offices of the kingdom and the priesthood will be joined together. They will be in unity. Okay, they will be in unity. Now, where it talks about the two offices, it's talking about Yeshua Messiah, our high priest, and overseer Yisrayl Hawkins, the zealous high priest, the seventh Malach, working together in unity. If I can have my fourth slide, please. Strong's Greek 2967. It means prune as trees to chastise, and it also means correct. Now, this is what Overseer Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins is doing in these last days. He's correcting, and he's teaching us. Now, if I can have my 5th slide, please. Etymology and meaning is an etymology and meaning of the word chastise. And it's from Online Etymology Dictionary. It means to make pure. Remember the pure word, restoring the pure word, to make pure. And it's been previous sermons brought out on this. Revelations 3:19 says that Yahshua Messiah rebukes and chastens as many as he loves. He also purges, he cleanses, and he purifies those abiding in the branch. From all filth and impurity, he accomplishes this work together with the 7th Malik, Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, the chosen branch that Yahweh told him in Zechariah 6:12. And he told him to behold him in Zechariah 6:12. And I won't turn there, but for your notes, write down Zechariah 6:12. It says, "Speak to him and say, for this is what Yahweh of hosts says, behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh. Behold the man whose name is the branch, for he will branch out from his place, and he will build the house of Yahweh." And when it says he will build the house of Yahweh, it means he will instruct the house of Yahweh. He will inspire, teach, guide, observe with care, train, nourish, and protect. And the council of peace is between both Yahshua Messiah, our high priest, and the branch. And Yahshua Messiah also testified that he sent his Malik to testify these things to us in these last days. And if y'all please stand, I'd like to turn it over to the next speaker, Obadiah.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. May I be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Okay, picking off where the last speaker just left on. Can I have my first slide, please? So the council of peace will be between them both. In English gematria, it goes up to 24 or 6. Next slide, please. So 24 or 6 in Strong's Hebrew means wait, and it's from 2590, which means ripen, blossom, become mature, ripen. So turn with me to the book of Yachanan. Yachanan chapter 4, it's on page 818. Yachanan 4 and verse 35. It says, "Do you not say, there are still 4 moons, then harvest comes? Behold, I say to you, lift up your eyes and look upon the fields. They are already white for harvest." So Yeshua Messiah is speaking of the wheat fields being white or ready for harvest. And he's indirectly referring to the color that wheat fields appear when they are ripe. So Daniel 12:10 and also Daniel 11:35. You can also find that in Daniel 11:35. Turn over to Daniel 11:10. Daniel 12:10, 12:10 says, "Many will be purified and made white and tried, tested, but the wicked will do wickedly, and none of the wicked will understand, but the wise will understand." So, many will be purified, made white, and tried. And this is speaking of moral, ethical purity. As the word white describes in Strong's Hebrew 38:35 and also 38:43. So in Strong's Hebrew 1305, the word purified in Daniel 12:10 shows the purification, purging, testing, and also selection. And selection, speaking of selection, remember the scripture that says, many are called but few are chosen, or many are called but few are selected. So this purifying or purging or making white and trying accomplished through Yeshua Messiah, the high priest, and the branch Yisrayl Hawkins. So can I have my next slide, please? Strong's Greek 24:6 means office of priesthood or office of priest. It's from 24:07, which is from 24:09, and 24:09 means a priest, and also it means high priest. So here we see the two offices of between whom the council of peace belongs to. The high priest Yeshua, and the priest who teaches peace, Yisrayl Hawkins. And remember the word Hawkins means zealous priest. So Zechariah 6:13. In your book of Yahweh, Zechariah 6:13 is on page 719. First, let's look at Zechariah 6:11. 6:11 says, take silver and gold and make crowns and set them upon the head of Yeshua, the son of Yahweh, the high priest. And also, that's speaking of Yeshua as the high priest. That's the office he has. And in verse 6:13, chapter 6 and verse 13, the same on the same page, it says, yes, he will build the house of Yahweh. He will bear glory and will sit and rule on his throne. He will be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace will be between them both. That's speaking of Yisrael, the priest. So, pastor will be a priest upon his throne. And in continuation for the council of peace and the two officers, I'd like to welcome the next speaker. You can all please stand. I'd like to welcome son of Israel Abel, Deacon Buffalo Bill.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. So today, continuing on in the hidden secrets of the two witnesses in our high priest Yeshua, and Yeshua, our high priest, I'm going to be covering the simple gematria. Could I have my slide? My first slide. The simple gematria of the Council of Peace will be between them both. It's number 401. Could I have my next slide? 401 in Strong's Hebrew means devoured. It's from 398. Eat freely, feed, fed, feast, plenty to eat, shared. Now at the house of Yahweh, Yahweh has prepared a table for us in the presence of our enemies. Please turn to Psalms 23 and verse 5. You prepare a table before us in the presence of our enemies. You anoint our heads with oil. Our cups overflow. The called out ones are fed and nourished with healthy, clean physical food and unmixed, healthy, clean spiritual food at the house of Yahweh. This is being provided without a price at Yahweh's feasts. Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, who is looking to Yeshua, as you see in Hebrews 12 verse 2, for his example, is teaching the called out ones in these last days how to keep the Sabbath as Yeshua kept it, in service to others. He has also taught us the importance of paying out tithes and sharing bread with the hungry, the bread from heaven, which if a man eats, he will not die. Can I have my next slide? Strong's Greek 401 means a pouring out, overflow, outpouring, and it's from number 303, which means anew, back, and it also means in the midst. And if you'll turn to Revelation 7 or 17, remember 7:17, it says, "For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will feed them and lead them to the fountains of waters, and Yahweh will wipe away all tears from their eyes." And in Revelation 22, verse 17, it says, "And the Spirit and bride say, Come, and let him who hears say, Come, and whoever is thirsty come, and whoever will, let him take of the water freely." And this water is the laws of Yahweh, the teachings here at the House of Yahweh. Now this outpouring, this overflow, describes the pouring out of the golden oil, the pure teachings, by the man clothed in linen, as we see in Daniel 12, verse 7. Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins, the seventh Malach, one of the two anointed witnesses, could I have my next slide? Spoken of in Zechariah 4, verse 14, or who are appointed to give light, as footnote 1 says on page 719 of the book of Yahweh. These two anointed ones are also described as the two lamps of the seven-lamp lampstand in Revelations 11:4 and Zechariah 4:11. Yahweh is pouring out His Spirit, His laws, upon His people and blessing the people by turning them away from their sins. He's writing the laws in their hearts and minds through the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. With Yeshua Messiah beholding the branch, our cups truly do overflow with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in this time period. Yeshua Messiah stated in Yochanan 10, verse 10, that He came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. Jeremiah 23, verse 4, shows that we'll never be lacking any righteous thing in this time period. And with this, if you'd all please stand. I'd like to turn the services over to the great son of Yeshua label, Deacon Yeshrin.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
May the peace of Yah be with each and every one of you. You may be seated. We are going to be covering Buffalo Bill Hawkins in the Gematria. But before we go to that, I have a short video.
Yahweh has called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother. We got some other elders that's going to bring that out today. They've got a movie made out of it. You'll enjoy this movie. Bowels of my mother, He has made mention. He made mention. So it was Him that brought this miracle about in the first place. The miracle where my brother, who was 1 year older than myself, his name was Vernon, and Daddy was bouncing him on his knee, I was told. My brother Jacob, when he heard I was going to change my name, he was living in Israel. He wrote me a letter and said, before you do that, you might consider the fact that your brother, who was only 1 year old, named you. Meaning, he thought I should keep the name I had, since it was brought to me through a miracle of a 1 year old brother who Dad was now bouncing on his knee and said, what would you name your brother? And out of his mouth came the words, Buffalo Bill Hawkins. And everyone talked about that. This had to be so for this witness.
May I please have my first slide? I will be covering 1394. It should be underlined. In Strong Hebrews 1394. It means cup, a bowl. Please turn over to Revelation 16, verse 17. And it says, "And the seventh Malach poured out his bowl into the air." That's the teachings. "And there came a great voice out of the house of heaven from the throne, saying, 'It is done.'" This is referring to the golden bowl for oil found in Zechariah 4, verse 2. It can also refer to the cup, portion, or lot assigned to overseer Yisrayl Hawkins to pour out the bowls or teachings and showing the people how sin and the bitter effects of the God worship is all causing the pain and suffering in the soul. Strong's Greek 1394 means a gift from 1325. May I please have my second slide? $13.25 means bestowed, commanded, given as a gift to appoint, to give someone to follow as a leader, disregarding entirely private interests, to commission to present. This refers to Isaiah 55, verse 4. May you please turn over to Isaiah 55, verse 4. And it says, "Behold, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people." I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people. The authority of the witness comes from heaven. Every righteous and perfect gift comes from Yahweh. Jacob 1, verse 17. His authority comes from heaven. Revelations 18, verse 1. As he has spoken of throughout the Holy Scriptures as being Yahweh's witness. And if you all please stand, I'll turn it over to the next speaker.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Now, if I can get my first slide, I'm gonna be picking up where the last speaker left off on this Buffalo Bill Hawkins, and it's number 1098. And if you can see there, Strong's Hebrew 1098 means feed, fooder, provender. It means to overflow, especially with oil. Anoint. And you know that oil is the golden oil, as the last speaker spoke about in Zechariah 4 and verse 2. That oil is the golden oil that's being poured out by the witness Yisrayl Hawkins. Now this refers to Yahweh's earth from number 101. From number 101, which means anoint, to overflow with oil. And that oil is Yahweh's laws. Now this refers to Yahweh's anointed chosen witness who is overflowing with golden oil, which he is pouring out on all the house of Yahweh during this time and dividing of times. He is feeding his sheep the food that brings life everlasting, which that is the laws of Yahweh. He acquires this knowledge through wisdom, understanding, by hungering and thirsting after Yahweh's righteousness. And in the 15th book of Yisrayl, chapter 25 and verse 42, it says, word 1933 is supposed to mean properly to breathe, to be in the sense of existence. Be though, be shall, maybe. It's from word 183, which means it means to wish for. It says wish for. The pastor says, but the word is desire, to desire, covet, greatly desire, be desirous, long after, lust after. So, pastor is saying there that he is lusting after, he's longing after Yahweh's laws. Now, this is speaking of life, what brings life? The laws of Yahweh. In other scriptures, it shows, like in Isaiah and Jeremiah, it shows the last day's witness, actually lusting after, breathing hard after, desiring the laws of Yahweh. He has inclined his ear to Yahweh, seeks, searches, covets, and longs after, and desires Yahweh's righteousness, and for all of us to be called by Yahweh's name. He shares what he has learned from Yahweh to his people. Now, if I can get my next slide. The number Strong's Greek 1098 means sweet wine. Now, this refers to the water of life that's spoken of in Revelations chapter 22 and verse 17. If you could all turn there. It's found on page 986. That's Revelations 22 and verse 17. And it says, and the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let him who hears say, come. And let him who is thirsty come. And whoever will let him take the water of life freely. Now the water of life is the teachings that flow from the witness Yisrayl, and they are pure, which means from the witness Yisrael Hawkins and the Lamb. They are pure, which means they are free from the mixture of righteousness and evil. For your notes, Jacob 3 in verse 11, it states, does a fountain send out from the same opening both fresh water and bitter? And you know that fresh water is Yahweh's laws, and that bitter water is a mixture of righteousness and evil. Now the answer is no. As Yeshua states in Matthew chapter 7 verse 17, it says, every righteous tree brings forth righteous fruits. A tree cannot bring forth fruits of iniquity. A righteous tree cannot bring forth those fruits of iniquity. So to learn more about this Buffalo Bill Hawkins, I'll turn it over to Great Deacon Samuel Van.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone! Praise Yahweh. You may be seated. I'm going to be continuing on about the gematria of the Buffalo Bill Hawkins. If I get my first slide, I'm going to be covering the last number 183. And that was the gematria for the Buffalo Bill Hawkins. If you get my second slide, first let's look in the Strong's Hebrew. Strong's Hebrew number 183. And look at the underlined words. It says the word desire, crave, longing, covet, be desirous. Now remember, we're talking about this Buffalo Bill Hawkins. Now this word here, this word number 183, it actually stems from another number that we actually have heard before. Strong's Hebrew word number 1934. Now who was born in the year 1934 that we know of? Yisrayl Hawkins. If you write these two sermon dates down, 10/31/2015 and 6/24/2017, Pastor goes into great detail about that number 1934. But back into the Strong's Hebrew number 183, desire, crave, longing, covet, be desirous. Does not our last day's witness do this with the laws of Yahweh? He longs for it. He craves it. Brothers and sisters, we need to be the same way with the laws of Yahweh. Well, Pastor has hungered and actually thirst for this righteousness. And knowledge that comes from Yahweh, and remember, that's where the knowledge only comes from. It's through Yahweh. And where you get it from, through pastor. Now, if you remember, pastor, when he comes up here, he tells the stories about his young life. If you look at or if you write down the first book of Yisrayl, write this down, the first book of Yisrayl, chapter 8, verse 89, this is an account of what pastor told us of how his life was when he was younger. Now, he said here, I heard the teachings of the scriptures. I heard encouragement into the scriptures, mostly by my mother, who was always encouraging us to follow, or to read and follow the scriptures and point out where we were breaking the scriptures. This went on constantly in my life when I was young. So this is something that he was being trained when he was young. I did not realize what it was doing to me at that time, but I do now. We see the great opportunity that we all have sitting at the feet of the priest and our last day's witness, learning this great information that he longed for, that he craved for. Brothers and sisters, that's all he wants, is for us to do righteousness. Now, if you look at my third slide, Strong's Greek number 183. Strong's Greek number 183. And again, look at the underlined words. It means disturbance, upheaval, turmoil, a revolution. Now notice that, a revolution that is first in political and then in moral spheres. We're going to talk about that. But notice the word turmoil. The word turmoil. And write these scriptures down. Luke 21:25. Luke 21 verse 25. And also Revelations 11 verse 18. Because this is what it's describing here about this turmoil in this time period. That the nations that we see today are in turmoil. In Luke 21:25 it says they're in great distress. And then Revelations 11:18 talks about how the nations were angry. What were they angry about? What are they distressed about? We see the world leaders, they're on the television, on the news that we bring forth. Do the leaders of today, do they have the answers, the solutions to the problems that they're facing? No. Where can they find the solution to the answers to their problems? Where? Here at the House of Yahweh. Only here. Brothers and sisters, and if we are not in agreement with that, then we don't have the solution to the problems that we constantly see on the news today. But the violence, the hatred, the wars, it continues to grow and grow everlasting in the world today. And remember, why is this? If you remember in 1 Samuel chapter 8, the children of Israel, the elders at that time, who did they refuse? Yahweh. They refused Yahweh. Of course, they said they didn't want Samuel over them, but they wanted a king to be just like all the other nations. But they ultimately refused Yahweh. They refused Yahweh's protection. And this is why we see the problems that the world is facing. It's because they refuse the counsel of peace. Remember the counsel of peace that was spoken of earlier. But they don't have the answers. They grope at the dark. Okay, they grope at noonday, as Deuteronomy 28 verse 29. If you want to turn there, Deuteronomy 28 verse 29, because this is what we see the world doing today. And it says, and you shall grope at noonday, reduced to blind helplessness, just as a blind man gropes in the dark. Ever searching for peace, but never finding it. You will not be successful in any of your ways. You will only be oppressed and robbed continually with no one to rescue you. Why? Because they refused Yahweh, the counsel of peace. Now, but remember that after this great tribulation, they're going to repent. The leaders of the world are going to repent along with the 2 billion people. They're going to turn to the House of Yahweh. They're going to turn to the peaceful solution. They're going to realize at that time that the answers were there all along. But this revolution that we're speaking of in the Strong's Greek 183, the revolution, if you think of the word revolution, it means turning back, doing a 360. If you walk in a straight line, you do a revolution, you come all the way back around. And that's exactly what this Council of Peace is going to do. It's going to turn around this Leviathan. Remember this Leviathan that Pastor spoke about? It's the Satan system. The system that we see out there influencing the people about this war and this hatred that we see all today. But remember Zechariah 6:13 about that council of peace will be between them both. Of course, it's talking about Yeshua and the branch. But look at the side note G9. Side note G9 of Zechariah 6:13. It says here, the two offices of the kingdom and their priesthood will be joined together. They will be in unity. Well, brothers and sisters, are we going to be in unity with that council of peace? Praise Yahweh. We have to be in unity. Yahweh is going to reign again. We're not going to see Satan's system rule over this world. No, that system is going to be destroyed. They're going to destroy themselves with the nuclear bombs. But if we're in unity with that council of peace, brothers and sisters, we will be part of that kingdom. Praise Yah. If you all please stand. I'd like to now turn out to the great son of Yisrayl, great Deacon Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Alright, remember we're in the Buffalo Bill Hawkins in Jamaica. If I could have my first slide. Now today I'm going to be adding up those three numbers, 1394, 1098, and 183 that we just covered. And as you can see there, it equals 2675. Alright, that's adding these three numbers in the gematria, adding them up in the calculator, you get 2675. Now, can I have my next slide? 2675 in Strong's Hebrew, as you can see there, it comes from two words. 2674 is Chatzar, and then 2318 is Chadash. Alright, those are the two words it comes from. Now if I can have my next slide. 2674, that's the first word. It means a village. It's from 2691, which means a court. Court of Solomon's temple. And remember, that was the House of Yahweh back then. And also, as you can see there, courts of Ezekiel's temple. Or Yeketskia's temple. Now, those were the House of Yahweh. Alright, but they turned to the temple, and now this is the House of Yahweh. Remember, the House of Yahweh was re-established. Alright, it comes from 2690. If I could have my next slide, there we go. It means to sound a trumpet, or trumpeter. Alright, and we all know who the trumpeter is in these last days. Who is it? Yisrayl Hawkins, yes. Now, the trumpet is used to call people together, especially in times of trouble. From the House of Yahweh established, if I can have my next slide. From the House of Yahweh established, it says, therefore the seed of the two witnesses will begin first in this world to shine forth as separated, distinct, and having understanding and wisdom, being present to call together and to convoke the courts of the house of Yahweh, the place of offerings, truly guaranteeing from the west. Alright, so the trumpet is used to call people together, especially in times of trouble. Now the next number, that was from the House of Yahweh established, page 62. Now the next number is 2319. 2319, and as you can see there, it means new. And it also means, at the bottom it says to renew, repair, renewed, restore. Alright, restore. Now these meanings all prove the writings of Yisrayl Hawkins true. And from the January-February 2004 prophetic word, if I can have my next slide, that's the prophetic word. It's the prophecy of the white buffalo. You can get it online at Yahweh.com. If you look at the downloads, it has this prophetic word. And this prophetic word, it's talking about the prophecy of the white buffalo. And as you can see there, it's talking about the name Buffalo Bill Hawkins, which is the gematria that we're talking about, Buffalo Bill Hawkins. And it says there in my next slide, it says, to most, the name Buffalo Bill Hawkins has no scriptural or prophetic meaning. It was the name of a famous showman. This was a part of Yahweh's plan to hide the one man who would bear witness and teach that perfect government based upon perfect laws. In the name Buffalo Bill Hawkins, the English word or name Buffalo traces back to a Hebrew word written in the Holy Scriptures. It says the Hebrew root word ta and its derivatives means an old wild ox or a buffalo. And as you can see there, it says Yash was kept hidden in the compartments of the House of Yahweh. Alright, that's what that word means. It says the name Yahash that Dr. Jastrow says is part of the meaning of the same Hebrew word ta. And if you look further down, it says the Hebrew word Owash that became the second part of the name Yahash is listed on page 621, and which shows this word to mean restore. Alright, and as you can see there, so the word Buffalo Bill Hawkins actually means Yahweh hid him in order to restore the house of Yahweh. Now, isn't that amazing how the gematrias adding them up shows the same thing? Okay, that shows how Yahweh is in full control. Now, it's also in this prophetic word here. Well, let me just hold it up. This is the August 2012 prophetic word, which is also talking about the prophecies of the white buffalo. And it has it in there too, and it goes into more depth about this name Buffalo Bill Hawkins. Now, so it actually means Yahweh hid Yisrayl in order to restore the house of Yahweh. Now, that's amazing because that's what both numbers meant. Alright, and if everyone can turn to Isaiah 44. If you could turn to Isaiah 44, verse 28, it says, Isaiah 44:28 says, the one saying for uprightness, the one who is Yisrael, this is the correct version, my shepherd who will accomplish all my purpose, who will say to Jerusalem, you shall be rebuilt, and to the house of Yahweh you shall be established. And that was the prophecy that Yisrael Hawkins fulfilled, and that's what the Buffalo Bill Hawkins means. It means Yahweh hid Yisrael in order to restore the house of Yahweh. And with that, if everyone will please stand. Let's turn over to son of Yisrayl, the great deacon Shalom Hawkins. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. With peace, Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I'm going to continue where the last speaker left off. We're going to be moving on to another topic here. If everyone could turn over to Isaiah 43. Isaiah 43, it's on page 557. 557, Isaiah 43:12. And actually, let's start at verse 10. It says, you are my witnesses, says Yahweh, and my servants whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe me and understand that I am He. And remember, Pastor, he read these scriptures, and he's been talking about this chapter here for the last couple sermons he's given, and he's been stressing on that. It says, so you may understand, believe me, and understand that I am He. Before me there was no other God, or there was no God, El, formed, nor will there be any after me. Remember, he explained, that means after His plan. Verse 11 says, I, even I, am Yahweh, and beside me there is no Savior. In verse 12 it says, I have declared, and I have saved, and I have showed that there is no strange God, El, among you. Therefore you are my witnesses, says Yahweh, that I am Yahweh. Okay? Remember that. I am Yahweh. Now, it's pretty interesting. It's on page 557. Okay, the book of Yahweh. It's found on page 557. And in the Strong's Greek, if I can have my first slide, Strong's Greek on the 557, it means a refutation, okay, or a disrepute, okay, censure. You can see censure down there at the bottom, and a reputation is a thing shown to be worthless. That's what Yahweh's showing here. He's showing that these gods here, the gods of this world, they're worthless. Okay, they have no they have no power. They're worthless gods. And in fact, I have my next slide. The word censure means to express severe disapproval of someone or something, typically in a formal statement. Okay, the expression of formal disapproval. Okay, and this is what Yahweh is doing here. Condemnation, to reprimand, rebuke, reproof. Okay, tongue lashing, disapproval, a scolding. Okay, and then it also means. That's it. If I can have my next slide, the word disrepute means something, or it means the state of being held in low esteem by the public, or shame, disgrace, dishonor, humiliation, okay, repute, discredit. And that's what Yahweh is doing in this chapter. He's discrediting these gods. He's discrediting all the power that they claim to have. In number 557 in Hebrew, it means confirm, be courageous, courage, steadfastly minded, strong, establish, increase, and to prevail. And that's what Yahweh is doing with his two witnesses. He's making them strong. He's pushing forward his two witnesses in this last day's work. And if you look in 43:1, Isaiah 43:1, it says, "But now this is what Yahweh says, who created you and who has formed you, Yisrayl. Fear not, for I am redeemed you. Okay, I have called you by your name, for you are mine." Okay, he says in verse 2, "Whenever you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they will not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, nor the flame kindle upon you." He's strengthening them. He's giving them this protection. Verse 4, he says, "Because you are precious in my sight, you have been honorable, and I have loved you. I will give men for you and people for your life." Verse 5 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring you seed from the east and gather you from the west." It says, "I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Everyone that is called with my name, whom I have created for my glory, I have formed. Yes, I have made them." Verse 10, it talks about how Yahweh chose them, and there was no strange gods. And in verse 12, it declares, that I am Yahweh. And that's what we can see here. He's strengthening, he's protecting these two witnesses and giving them the strength, to keep on going. That word disrepute, it's the same one used in Acts 19, verse 27, if you could turn over there. Acts 19:27, whenever the Apostle Shaul was, going against these merchants, at the images, at that goddess, the temple of the goddess Diana, and they're angry with the Apostle Shaul for bringing disrepute on their money. Remember what that means, the word disrepute. He was bringing shame and dishonor upon their money and upon their business that they had going on there, that money-making enterprise. And the Apostle Shaul, he was telling the people about how Yahweh and Yeshua, he was telling them, about the great work that Yeshua did. He's preaching that the gods of the nations, the gods that they were worshiping, and their goddesses, they mean nothing. They were worthless. And they're worthless for salvation. They weren't going to bring them anything. If you look at Acts 19:27, it says, so there's
it says, so there is danger of not only this trade falling into disrepute, but also the temple of the great goddess Elohim, Artemis, becoming despised and her magnificence destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worships. Okay, this is what they were saying, and this is what the citizens there were saying about the things that Shaul was preaching. This is the danger that he brought to he brought against their enterprise. Okay, and he said, in a little bit ahead of the chapter, he talks about the things that the apostle Shaul did in Acts 19 and verse 4. He's preaching about how Yochanan truly baptized with the baptism of repentance. Saying that saying to the people that they who should believe on him would come after him, that is, on the Messiah, Yahshua. And then verse 6, it says that when Shaul had elders' hands laid upon them, the Holy Spirit came on them, and they spoke in languages and prophesied. Altogether there were about 12 men. And he went into the synagogue and spoke boldly for about 3 moons, reasoning with them and persuading things concerning the kingdom of Yahweh. But since some were hardened and would not believe, they spoke evil about the way of Yahweh before the multitude. And he separated themselves from them, taking the disciples with him. But every day he reasoned in the school of Tyrannus. Okay, and and the work that Shaul did was endangering, what they were doing. Now, all these words and all the definitions here, it describes what the witness Yisrayl Hawkins, or Buffalo Bill Hawkins, the speaker before us, talked about. Stood courageously against the gods of this world. He stood firmly, against any form of sin, anyone who partakes in that sin. He's established the House of Yahweh, and he's promised to keep sin out. He's promised that the gates of hell, will not prevail against this work, and we can see that in the scriptures how it prophesies that. And he's been steadfastly minded. He's been courageous. He's been steadfast in the work that Yahweh's put him to do. Even against all the persecution, the threatening of imprisonment, and even death. So we can see all those things. If y'all please stand, I'm out of time. If y'all please stand, I'd like to turn over to the next speaker, the great Deacon Yaakov Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Today we'll be starting a new phrase in the Gematria calculator, and it's from Isaiah 43:12. Let's turn there. Isaiah 43, found on page 557, verse 12, and it says, I have declared, I have saved, and I have showed that, and no strange God, El, is among you. Therefore, you are my witnesses, says Yahweh, that I am Yahweh. Okay, now, this is one of the only places in the book of Yahweh that it says that in bold lettering, that I am Yahweh. Okay, so if you look that up in the Gematria, can I have my first slide? It comes out to the first number there, underlined, is 1362. Now, could I get the next slide? Now, if you look at 1362 in Hebrew, it means high, lofty, exalted. It means to be exalted, to be lofty. It says of Jehovah's ways, good sense. Okay, now it also means in Greek, can I get the next slide? 1362 in Greek goes to 1364, which means twofold, double, twice. And then it goes to 1417. Can I get the next slide? Which means the two, and then at the bottom you see the two men. Okay, now this is the same word used in Revelation 11:4. Can I get the next slide? Revelation 11:4, which is talking about the two witnesses. Okay, you can see there 14:17 is the two olive trees and also the two lampstands, which we know is the two witnesses. Praise Yahweh. Okay, now this is also showing that these two witnesses will exalt the name of Yahweh and also the house of Yahweh. If you go to Isaiah 2, this is a few pages back, Isaiah 2, found on page 531, Isaiah 2:2, it says, "And it will come to pass in the last days that the mountain promotion of the house of Yahweh will be established in the chief of the nations, and will be raised," notice that word raised, exalted, "above all congregations, and all nations will eventually flow to it." And then if you go to Micaiah, just a few pages over from that, on page 705, Micaiah 4:1, it says the same thing, that the house of Yahweh will be raised or exalted above all congregations. Now if you turn to Zechariah 5:9, Zechariah 5:9, found on page 719, it says, "Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, the two women, the last two heirs of the house of Yahweh, sent with commandment. The Spirit of Yahweh came to overshadowed them. They were covered with the covering of the saints, and they exalted," you see that word exalted there, "magnified and extolled the ephah, the standard of perfection sent by Yahweh's laws, separating the way of the world from the way of Yahweh." So you can see that that's the same word used in Zechariah 5:9, that these two witnesses will, they exalted, magnified, and extolled the laws of Yahweh and the house of Yahweh. Well, that's all I have, so if y'all please stand. I'd like to turn over to the next speaker, great son of Yisrayl, Odeya Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. I'll be continuing on two witnesses and our high priest Yeshua. I'll be talking about English gematria for the phrase "I am Yahweh," found in Isaiah 34 in verse 12. 43:12. It is the word 558. May I have my first slide? Strong's Hebrew 558 means Yahweh is mighty. May I have my second slide? Strong's Greek means one freed away, a free man. May I have my third slide? Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins does not worship any gods at all. The only person he worships is Yahweh. Okay. So 558 is Isaiah 44, which talks about the two witnesses. It talks about the two witnesses and what their work is about. And with that, if you'll all please stand. I'd like to turn it over to Son Yisrael Yeshaya.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh be with each and every one of you. Today I'm going to be continuing on the gematria of "I am Yahweh," found in Isaiah 43, verse 12. Can I have my first slide? So I'm going to be going over the simple gematria, which is the last number, and it's number 93. Now can I have my second slide? Now 93 is the word egos, and it means nut. Can I have my third slide? Now at the bottom there it says egos can mean either nut or, more specific, walnut. Could I have my fourth slide? Okay, and it says, okay, it's a walnut, and egos melech. Now, melech. Egos can mean either nut or, more specific, walnut, because of its similarity to the human brain. Could I have my fifth slide? So there you can see a human brain next to the walnut, and you can see how it's similar because it has two hemispheres, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And the two witnesses are represented by two lamps, one on the right side and one on the left side. And this is spoken of in Zechariah 4 verse 3 and Revelations 11:4. Now, in Psalms 93:1, if I could have my sixth slide, notice the first two words, Yahweh reigns. Now, could I have my seventh slide? In Gematria, Yahweh reigns equals Gematria. Yahweh reigns equals 1553 in the Jewish, 852 in the English, and 142 in the simple. Now, I'm going to go over these, if I could have my next slide. 1553, it goes to 1552. It means Galilee Circuit District. Could I have my next slide? Now, the next number, 852, it means sign, miraculous signs, wonders. And it goes to 226, and it means sign, banner, remembrance, a sign, standard, miracle, proof. Now, could I have my 10th slide? And this number, it's the last number, 142. It means be majestic, noble, to raise up, elevate, lift up. Now, reign, if I could have my next slide. Reign means hold royal office, rule as king. And if I could have my 12th slide. If you remember number 142 meant be majestic. And Yahweh is majestic. It says in the next couple words, you clothe yourself with majesty. And that's speaking about Yahweh. Now, the total gematria of I am Yahweh, the three numbers that you get, is 1362, 558, and 93. And they equal 2013. And for more information on this number, I'd like to turn it over to Deacon David Knighton.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please be seated. This is exciting. This 2013. Does that ring a bell anywhere? Well, remember let me get my first slide if I could, please. Remember the 2013 gold sign over the sanctuary on 2/3/13. Now, see, you got a few notes there at the bottom of the slide. If you can write those down on 2/3/13, which showed the two witnesses along with the great Kohan Yedidiah and also the donkey colt. Now, this occurred at 6:49 p.m. This cloud was seen after sunset on February 3rd, technically making it, February 4th. And that is the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the House of Yahweh in the last days. The 30th anniversary. Praise Yahweh. All right, so a gold 2013 placemat was made as a reminder of this miracle. And by the way, those placemats that you're looking at right now on the screen, you can get those down at the South office. All right, on 3/31/13, the gold cloud was seen during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, 2013, and it's what's now known as the Gold Feast. And above that cloud, depicting Pastor Israel Hawkins being crowned by Yeshua Messiah, was the word ruby. Y'all remember that? ruby. That was at the last of the feast that was brought out. The date was 4/2/13. That was the last day of the feast that it was brought out in the afternoon services. It was explained actually that the word ruby, which appeared above the gold cloud, meant to submit to Yahweh and to those that are over you. Can I have slide number 2, please? Now, take a look at the side note on there. But it means, that ruby means to submit to Yahweh and to those that are over you, and that's found in Yekishkia 28:13, right there. You can't see the 13, but write that down. It's side note number 1. I think it's underlined in red, where it explains that the meanings of the 12 stones on the high priest's breastplate and the righteous qualities that each one of those represent. Now, 28 is one of Pastor's lot numbers, and remember, this is Yekishkia 28. We're still on slide number 2 for a moment. Now, this is found on page 649 in the book of Yahweh. Let's have slide number 3, please. Slide number 3. It's page 649 in the book of Yahweh, and this was at 6:49 p.m., remember? That's the time that the gold 2013 sign appeared over the House of Yahweh sanctuary, and get this. It was 59 days, just 59 days before this, it was brought out. Before it was brought out. And the Strong's Hebrew 59 means able. It's right there to the right on the slide at the bottom there. 59 means able. So this sermon from the 4/2/13, if you want to check it out, and we encourage you to, can be found in the 13th book of Israel. See the note there on the slide. It's the 13th book of Israel, part 1, chapter 14, and that's on page 146 of that sermon. You'll see the picture depicting what was titled, "A Golden Sign Presented in the Clouds by Yahweh Over His Great House." And then, now this is interesting here because that's along with Pastor's remarks about the sign that was seen on 2/3 and 2/4/2013. So that's on page 146. You'll want to check that out. Can we turn to slide 4, please? Now on the gold placemat itself, look at the very top there. See where it says there is a reason? On the gold placemat in the upper left-hand corner, it reads, "There is a reason. There is a reason Yahweh chose to use this photograph taken by the Abelin Reporter News in their initial attack against the one sent in these last days to put into the clouds over his house, along with the words 2013 gold." And I think about that Abelin Reporter News, Abalone News, you know. But anyways, it's there for a reason, he said. Now, that whole statement right there, that entire section at the top, if you put that into the gematria, it comes out 2142. Can I have the next slide, please? The next one. Back one. Yes, okay, that's the one. I'm sorry, we were already there. Notice it says at the bottom, it has that whole statement, there is a reason Yahweh chose to use this photograph taken by the Abelin Reporter News in their initial attack against the one sent in these last days to put into the clouds over his house along with the words 2013 gold. And that's in the simple gematria. That's all of those words. That whole statement comes out 2142. Now 2142, if we can have the next slide. 2142 is the Hebrew word zakar, and it means call to remembrance. Remember. Memorial. All of those underlined in red there. Brings to remembrance. Put me in remembrance. Reminder. Take thought. Celebrate. Invoke. This is the same word which was used, or which the name Zechariah, which means remembrance of Yahweh, derives from, and is the exact word used in Exodus 3:15. You can write that down. Exodus 3:15, where this is my name forever. This is my memorial. The name by which I am to be remembered by from generation to generation for all generations. So, I am Yahweh. This is His memorial, His name, to be remembered from every generation before and every generation after, from now on. I am Yahweh. This word is also used It's also used in Exodus 20:24. In every place I choose to establish my name, that's Strong's Hebrew 21:42, I will come to you, I will bless you. The place that Yahweh has chosen to and placed His name in these last days is the House of Yahweh in Abelin, Texas, established by prophecy. Now that should prove that point right there. And I think these young men have done a very great job today in bringing forth this information. And we are almost done. If you'll all please stand. It's my great honor and privilege to present to you the great Kohan Benjamin Krause Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom! Great saints of Yahweh, you may be seated. May the peace of Yahweh truly be with everyone here. I'm going to continue, and I want you to remember everything that's been brought thus far. And I also want us to remember a statement that Pastor made back in 2015, the end of 2014, 2015, when we started on these numbers and even the pictures. He told us to remember everything we're seeing. Okay, and he told us to keep these things in mind and to go over them and to study them, to always keep them in our forefront of our mind. Because Yahweh's not finished. He's giving us the information and He builds on it. And our understanding opens as time goes on more of these things. And it's just really, to me, it's just so incredible, the things that Yahweh's showing. I'm going to continue on the where the great deacon David Knighton Hawkins just left off. Can I have my first slide? Because I want to go back to this placemat. And remember, there's a reason, that this was used. You see Pastor standing there, right? In front of that marquee. And it says, Yahweh is our Savior. Isaiah 43:11. And that right there is showing the job that the two witnesses have, is to teach the world that there is no God. No God is going to save you. There's no salvation in the gods. And look at him standing there, firmly standing upon this. You don't see any fear or cowardice, any moral cowardice in this man. You see him telling all of Abelin there in that Abeloni news report that Yahweh is our Savior. There is no gods. Or the gods can't save you. There are gods in the heaven and the earth, but they have no power to save. Only Yahweh can. Let's go to the next slide. Notice here this olive tree over the house of Yahweh. Now I want you to remember that olive tree that was seen recently on 5/28/17 was in the exact same spot that olive tree that you're looking at right now, that the great Kohan Michael Sheets Hawkins drew. He finished that last draft of that drawing exactly 7 years to the day before that cloud was seen with the 531, the olive tree, which I'll show you in a minute. Showing Yahweh so precise about everything that He does. And that Yahweh's inspiring His workers in the house of Yahweh. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're sweeping floors, if you're washing dishes, if you're cooking. I don't care what you're doing. If you're in the press room, mail room, south office, north office, whatever you're doing, Yahweh's working with His people right here in this house. Never think that your work is in vain in Yahweh. Because Yahweh is showing that His workers, His diligent workers, He inspires them in the things that they're doing. Now I want you to look at the position of that tree. And let's go to the next slide. Now this slide here, that was the actual picture of the olive tree that was seen over the sanctuary on 5/28/17, just 3 days before Pentecost. And the number 531 is written in that tree. And remember, Pentecost fell on 531. And if you remember, and I don't know if, I thought it was on the slide, but that tree was seen at 1636. That was the time on my phone. It was set toward 24-hour time, and it meant an olive tree. Olive trees. How amazing, right? And that's in the Greek, by the way. Let's go over to the next slide. Remember page 531. 531 is written in that tree. And 531 in the book of Yahweh just so occurs to talk about the house of Yahweh being established. The establishment of the house of Yahweh in Isaiah 2:2. Okay? And everyone's very familiar with that scripture. Now let's go back to the gold placemat because we're going to do a little math here. Let's go to the next slide, actually. That word gold, in the gold 2013 and the gold placemat, it comes out to 228. One of the numbers is 228. And again, go back in the archived sermons and you'll see that a whole sermon was given about that gold placemat on 228:15. And showed how Yahweh inspired that thing completely. But of course, as time goes on, we're learning more about that placemat. Does everybody have that placemat? You didn't get your reminder that Yahweh told us to get? He told us to purchase that reminder. It's a reminder, remember? Go back and read the sermon the great deacon just told you about from 4:2:13, and Pastor told us, get your reminders. Don't leave here without them. There's a sign as you're leaving out there, it says, remember. Don't forget. Don't forget what your eyes have seen, what Yahweh is showing us. So 228. I did a little math there. Let's go to the next slide. We added 228 to that 2013 in the gold there. And it comes out to 2241. So can I go to my next slide? 2241 means olive tree. Olive tree. Now, if you'll notice, can you back up just one more time? Back up to the last slide. Do you notice that that picture, if you can see the whole picture on the placemat, that particular sign was seen in the exact same place that olive tree was drawn. In the exact same place over this sanctuary right here. Right here. I'm looking at it right here. In the exact same place, that gold 2013 sign was seen. And it means olive tree. How incredible is that? Because he's showing us twice now. Olive tree. And by the way, if you look at that placemat and you look at the outline of the shading, it looks like the same olive tree that we saw in 531. And it's got the two witnesses. It's got the great Kohan Yedidiah Hawkins, who is standing fast for Yahweh right now, courageously. And it's got a little donkey colt next to him. And who would that be, House of Yahweh? That's all of you who are standing here today and in the outlying areas that are watching, that are holding fast to the witness. It means olive tree. Let's go back to that. It means olive tree. And it's from 2132, which means olive tree. And then it's from 2099, and it means it's named as the month of the beginning of the temple building. And it means to be prominent and brightness. Prominent and brightness. We've heard a lot about prominent and attaching to Pastor Israel Hawkins, that word prominent. And also, this work being made prominent, in these last days here at the House of Yahweh. And also brightness. You ever notice how bright Pastor's face looks when he gets up here? I used to call it the high pro glow, I didn't have any other way to describe it, but I would call it the high pro glow, because he just seemed to glow. And he seems to get younger every time he gets up here. It's just amazing to me. That man is so immersed in Yahweh that you can just see the life coming from this man. You remember his face shining over the sanctuary over here, with the light coming out. His face shines. It truly does. He's very bright. But the laws that he teaches is what brings that brightness and cheerfulness to all of us, if we keep these laws. Let's go to the next slide. 2241 in the Greek. Now get this. This is the word Eli. It's the same word, Eli, 2241 in Strong's Greek, that Yeshua cried when he was on the stake. And he said, Eli, Eli, lama azabachthani, which means my strength, why have you forsaken me? You remember in Isaiah 49:5, pastor says, my Father is my strength. It's talking about the witness Israel. He says, my Father is my strength. In Isaiah 45:5, it says, I am Yahweh, and there is no other apart from me. There is no God. You know, that used to blow my mind when I would read that, because there's a big capital G there. So anybody that thinks you're God because he has a capital G on it is something? No, he's nothing. Okay? It's nothing. God is nothing. It has nothing to offer for salvation. Yahweh is the only source of power in the universe. There is no other source of life out there. There is no God. I will strengthen you with this knowledge, though you did not recognize it was me. Speaking of, the two witnesses, the witness Israel. Now let's go back to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide, not back. Sorry, I'm using the wrong language. Let's go forward to the next slide. And the other number in gold, in the gematria of gold, is 81. So go to the next slide, please. We added 81 to that 2013 that was seen in that gold, and it comes out to 2094. Let's go to the next slide. And it means 2094. Okay, we have it up. Okay. It means to admonish. Admonish. Now get this. It says, send out light, shine. Figurative of everlasting glory of teachers of righteousness. Daniel 12:3. It's the same word that's used in Daniel 12:3 that says, remember, they will shine. Let's turn there. Daniel 12:3. Daniel 12:3. I'll give you a page number here. It's on page 684. And it's Daniel 12:3, and it says, those who are wise will shine. There's that word shine. It's word 2094. As the brightness of the heavens, and those who turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Yes, this is describing everyone that you see over that sanctuary in that gold cloud. Did you see who was up there? The two witnesses, the great Kohan Yedidiah Hawkins, the donkey's colt, all of you here that are tethered to the choicest branch in these last days. That's speaking of all of us as a body. Remember, Pastor always says, when you see me, you see the house of Yahweh, okay? We're all working together as a team. That's 2094 in the Hebrew. Now let's go to 2094 in the Greek. Next slide, please. 2094 in the Greek, it means year or years. Okay, 2094. Now a year is symbolic of remembering or remembrance. Okay? As remembrance is made yearly for certain events in Scripture. Like Yeshua's memorial, we gather every year and remember our great high priest. And remembering the woman who anointed Yeshua's feet. You all remember that? It's a remembrance. It's a memorial. Also, the yearly feast circuit. Okay? It's yearly. Remember, we're talking about 2094 a year. Now remember, look at the bottom of the slide. See also Hebrews 10:3 where it says, but in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance, a reminder of sins every year. Every year. Every year. So when you see that word year, think of remembrance, like anniversary. Anniversary, the 30th anniversary of that gold cloud. Can we go to the next slide? Now, you see Pastor standing there next to that marquee back in 1985, 30 years before that gold sign was seen over the sanctuary. And when you add up what's on that marquee, it comes out to 4311. No, it's Isaiah 4311. It equals 2981. 2981. So let's look at the next slide and see, and lo and behold, what 2981 means. It's the word Yabul, which means produce, and it's from 2986, which means Yabal. Wow, imagine that. Abel, Abelin, the gathering place, the place of gathering, right? And remember, go to the next slide. The House of Yahweh established booklet there on page 70. Remember, on our first, on 624, we talked about that word Yabal all day long, did we not? Everybody should know what Yabal means now. It's the root of Abel. And Abel means to bring, gather to the body of the Messiah, the only place that Yahweh's chosen to place His name. We've got to get this firmly in our mind that Yahweh's in complete control of this boat here. And yes, I said boat, because it is a place of safety. It is the ark that we must get to. Let's go to my next slide. Now, one of the great deacons showed you this prophecy of the white buffalo from 2004 Prophetic Word magazine. And by the way, you can go on Yahweh.com, go to downloads, and it'll be there, the great white buffalo prophecy. You don't have to dig far. It's there. It's very prominent for you to see. And I suggest you go back and read it after this, because you're going to be greatly amazed what Yahweh shows in that magazine. Remember, everything that we're showing you, these hidden secrets of the two witnesses and Yahshua our high priest, Pastor explained the prophecies to us, did he not? He wrote about all this years in advance. Now the numbers are showing Pastor is exactly right about what he told us. Exactly right. And there will be no excuse for any of us here. None. There will be none. I told you months ago, it's going to be made crystal clear. Crystal clear that Yahweh loves this body right here, this body of Messiah. This body of Messiah. There is no other body. There's one body, one faith, one baptism. Yahweh is one. He's a unity, and He's right here over this house. No other place. We got to get that in our mind. Okay, so you remember he showed here in that article, it said that the word buffalo, the word buffalo, actually means Yahweh hid him in order to restore the house of Yahweh. Can you go to my next slide? So running that in the gematria calculator, Yahweh hid him in order to restore the house of Yahweh. The first number that comes up is 4062. Can I have my next slide? And notice, it means gold making. Golden city. From 1722, gold. Gold. Wow, what a coincidence. Right? Gold. And it means yellow as oil. Golden oil pouring out from this great seventh Moloch, the beautiful seventh Moloch. Isn't it just, I know you all feel the same way when you see him get up here. This man is beautiful. Okay, because he's teaching us the laws of Yahweh, and he stands so firm against God and God worship. But he's so kind and gentle and merciful and loving to us. But he's telling us we've got to get the gods out. We've got to become gold in character. Okay, like this man is. We've got to become like him and like Yahshua, our great high priest who works with this man. And it means gold. Okay, so can we go to my next slide? Look at the next number. And Yahweh hid him in order to restore the house of Yahweh. In English gematria is 3186. Let's go to the next slide. It means persons. It means greater, first of all. And it means person, eminent for ability. Virtue. What is virtue? It's moral excellence. Look at the footnote on 1 Kepha. He says, add to your faith virtue. And virtue means moral excellence. Who wrote Building Moral Excellence? Who taught us? Who is teaching us to be morally excellent? The great Pastor Israel Hawkins, okay? His name is on all those Peaceful Solution books, okay? It's authored by the great Pastor Israel Hawkins. And it means authority and power. Things esteemed highly for their importance. A thing to be highly esteemed for its excellence. Okay, that's what that word 3186 means. Let's go to the next slide. Now, 531. Amazing, isn't it? Yahweh hid him in order to restore the house of Yahweh. 531 in the gematria? Look at the cloud. Look at the olive tree over the exact place that it was drawn in 2010, May 29th. May 29th, the final draft was made by the great Kohan. It was used in that depiction when the children were singing the Great Commandment. It was put in that video over the exact. Now, if you notice down in the bottom left, you'll see the billboard there where Pastor is right over here, just over where he sits. That tree is off to the right. It's over the center right here in the exact same place. 531, if you remember, by the way, it means strong, it means bold, it means courageous. Is our great Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins and all of his donkey colts sitting here today, are we not strong and bold and courageous in Yahweh? You know where that boldness comes from? Because Pastor Yisrayl Hawkins is driving the gods out of us. Okay? He's driving the gods out of us. Yes, this is a God-forsaken place, and everyone out there that wants to repent of God worship, you're welcome here. Come, drink of the water of life freely. Just leave your gods at home. Okay? He's driving these gods out of us. But we should be repenting. You know, we should be becoming more pure as time goes on here. Because that's what he is. He's a purifier of the sons of Levi, along with Yeshua, our high priest. He's purifying us and getting rid of all the filth and abominations that have been placed in our minds by who? The Roman Catholic Church. Okay? No, yeah, you didn't have to go to a Roman Catholic Church in order to be influenced. Catholic means universal. If you were in a church out there, you're a Catholic and you're Roman. You just don't know it yet. Okay, so 531. Let's go to the next slide. I added up all of the numbers in that gematria, and notice what it is. 777. Wow. Amazing, huh? 777 gold. Remember? Gold, Pastor's Gold Flake Vision. 777. 7779 is the number. Let's go to the next slide. And it means cover. Cover. And it's from Psalm 139:11, where it says, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night. Remember 139:15, it's talking about how we were formed in the womb and how fearfully and wonderfully we are made. And we were formed in secret. Okay? I'm setting you up for some things later, okay? You need to keep that in your mind about being made and formed. Okay? But it means to cover, and cover means hidden or hide. Okay? Cover means hidden or hide. Now let's go to the next slide. Did anybody see this on the calendar, the 2017 calendar, and think there was some kind of misprint there? It says the House of Yahweh reestablished. Wait a minute. I thought it was established. No, that's correct. It was reestablished. Okay? Remember, in the last days it will be established, but it was established before. Okay? Now, because remember, reestablished, go to the next slide. Let's look at the word restore. Remember, was hidden in order to restore the house of Yahweh? If you notice, one of the definitions of restore means reestablish. Reestablish. He was hidden in order to reestablish this house of Yahweh. Remember, cover, hidden in order to restore. Do these numbers not blow your mind like they do mine? I mean, I'm telling you, before I go to sleep at night, I get out my gematria calculator and I just think of things and I put them in there. And next thing I know, it's time to get up. I'm telling you, to me, it's just so amazing, you know. I hope I never not feel the joy and excitement that I feel when I see these things that Yahweh's showing us right here. It's just incredible. Okay, so reestablish. Go to the next slide. Now, I want you to remember, we were talking about the council of peace being between them both, Yeshua and Pastor. The council of peace, that word council, it's word number 6098. in Strong's Hebrew. And it means plan, it means counselor. It means a lot of other things too, but it means plan. The plan will be between them, the counsel, the purpose, okay? But it's from 3289, and I want you to notice a very interesting word being used right there. It says advertise. Advertise. Well, if you notice that billboard right there, what's that called? Yeah, it's an advertisement. We're advertising, the House of Yahweh, welcome home to Abel, it says. The House of Yahweh welcomes you home to Abel. That's an advertisement, is it not? Go to the next slide, please. Let's all turn to 1 Kings 7:15. 1 Kings 7:15. In your great book of Yahweh. I'll give you a page number as soon as I find it. 1 Kings 7:15. And if you'll notice, next slide, it says, Solomon cast 2 pillars of bronze. 2 pillars. Jump down to verse 21. By the way, 7:21, isn't that when the House of Yahweh received its charter from the state of Texas? You remember these numbers, you got to remember, reminders, remember? It says, then he set up the pillars on the porch of the house of Yahweh. That means in the front, before you enter the holy place. That's where he put them. He set up 1 pillar on the south side and called its name Yakin, which means he will establish. And he set up the other pillar on the north side and called its name Boaz, which means in him is strength. Remember Boaz was of the lineage of Yahshua Messiah, was he not? Boaz, in him is strength, and Yakin, he will establish. Turn over to Zechariah 6:13. Again, talking about the 2 witnesses, the branch, and Yahshua Messiah. On page 719. Hey, by the way, 1 Kings 7:15. What's the date today? Wow, what another coincidence, right? Another coincidence. Wow, amazing. So write that down. Don't forget. Remember, okay? Let's read Zechariah 6:13. It says, yes, he will build the house of Yahweh. Speaking of the branch, Pastor Israel Hawkins. He will bear glory, and he will sit and rule. That word rule doesn't mean, the way the Gentiles rule, lording it over others. No, guide, teach, lead, instruct, gently guiding us in righteousness. This is what this is talking about here. He will be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace will be between them both. Now, can you put that slide back up again, 1 Kings 7:15? Now notice those 2 pillars. You see those 2 pillars? Have you ever wondered why they're so tall? When you come into that gate right there, that is the first thing you see. Those 2 pillars right there in front of the house of Yahweh. Those 2 pillars. And remember, the counsel of peace will be between them both. There's that same advertisement. The same billboard that you see right over here on 254 and Oak Forest. There's the same advertisement. The counsel of peace will be between them both. Well, who's that? Yahshua Messiah and Israel Hawkins. The counsel of peace will be between them both. Now, turn over to Zechariah 13 or 6:13. You should already be there. Look at G9 side note again. It says the 2 offices of the kingdom and the priesthood will be joined together. They will be in unity. As the great deacon told us, they rejected Yahweh when they asked Samuel for a king. But guess what? The kingdom of priestly kings, they won't reject Yahweh. You sitting here that are being trained, and everyone that's being trained right now in the house of Yahweh, you're going to be judges. Are you going to reject Yahweh? No, of course not. So the kingdom and the priesthood will be joined together. Okay? Remember, they wanted a king from the nations at that time. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide, please. There's that calendar again. By the way, that's April 2017 calendar. And it says, who has set up his house? Who set this house up? It says, the house of Yahweh reestablished or restored. It says, be thankful that Yahweh has set his house up. Notice who's in the middle of those two pillars. What's that name right there? Right here. Right here. Who's on either side? That's right. The council of peace will be between them both. And he's showing you right there. Is anything not inspired in these last days? I mean, inspired by Yahweh in the house of Yahweh, right? We don't want God's inspiration here, okay? We need to drive the gods completely away. And remember, by the time this is over, the gods will be abolished. This earth is going to become purple, okay? We started that purple campaign, I think it was back at the feast of Passover. We're progressing, okay? We're progressing. And the people on Facebook are looking at this information that you diligent donkeys are putting up. And guess what? They're going to come. They're coming. They're responding. They're rejoicing because they see this information of the hidden secrets of the two witnesses. Can I have my next slide? The hidden secrets of the two witnesses. That's been our series. We're in the third installment. Now I'm going to set you up for something here. I got to tell you this. You can look it up yourself because it was this morning that Yahweh showed this. Didn't have time to print it out, but I want you to write this down. I'm going to use the, oh, here it is. I've got to use my phone here. I want you to write these numbers down. Because this is another statement, if you'll read right here, in this 2004 White Buffalo deal. Another meaning of it was, he was hidden in order to restore the house of Yahweh at Abel and the priesthood. That was entered into the gematria right here. Write these numbers down. 4360, 4146, and 691. Again, that is 4360, and I just want you to look them up in the Hebrew. That's all. You can just look at every Hebrew definition. 4146 and 691. He was hidden in order to restore the house of Yahweh and the priesthood. 4360 means to finish, to make perfect and complete. 3245 means to establish, found, lay the foundation. And the last number, 691, traces to 717, gather. Go to Zechariah chapter 4 for my final scripture. On page 718. Zechariah chapter 4, page 718. So he answered me, verse 6. So he answered me and spoke to me, saying, this is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel. Who is Zerubbabel? Israel Hawkins. Word number 2216 in the Hebrew and the Greek. 22:16, Revelation 22:16 said, I have sent my Moloch, Zerubbabel, to testify. This is the word of Yahweh to Zerubbabel, saying, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, my laws. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, says Yahweh of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain in Rome? And throughout this world? Who are you? Who are you gods? I could just hear Ilya now, or Pastor now, challenging these gods. Because he knows they're nothing. And we need to know they're nothing. They have no power. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel, you will become a plain. And he will bring out its capstone with shouts of blessing upon it. Then the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation. I just gave you that definition. Notice what else it says. His hands will also finish it. Those are in both those words I just gave you. Yes, make no mistake. Yahweh hid this man, this great witness, Yisrayl Hawkins. He hid him in order to restore, establish this great house in these last days. And the council of peace is between him and Yeshua, our great high priest. Let's give him a hand. And with that, we are going to leave. I'm going to leave early. Are you all rejoicing? All right. If you'd all please stand, I'd like to turn it over now to the great son of Israel, Abel, for prayer.